Welcome back, boys and girls. We are happy to see you back with us to continue our lesson on insects. My name is Miss Latondra, and I'm your host. This is your teacher, Miss Allison. I know you're excited to find out more about amazing insects, and we hope you are too. So let's go.
Welcome back, everyone. Today's lesson is part 2 of the life cycles of insects. We're going to review what we learned in part 1. So let's start with our KWL chart. Remember, the K is for what we know, the W is for what we wonder, and the L is for what we learned. So during part 1 of our lesson on insect life cycles, under what we know, Miss Latondra shared that she knows that insects start out as eggs. She was wondering what happens after an insect hatches from its eggs. So what we learned in lesson 1 was first that not all insects experience the same stages of development. We also learned about a complete metamorphosis and an incomplete metamorphosis. We are going to learn more about those two types of metamorphosis today. So let's look at our first slide to see what we're going to be learning about. After today's lesson, you should be able to describe insect life cycles and the processes of complete and incomplete metamorphosis. You should also be able to describe how some insects look like miniature versions of adults when they are born from eggs. You will be able to explain why some insects molt, and you will also be able to describe how some insects go through 4 distinct stages of development, including egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Here's our title for today's lesson. Again, it is the life cycles of insects, and this is part 2. Let's review our vocabulary from lesson 1. Metamorphosis. It is the process of change taking place in 2 or more distinct stages in the life of an insect. There are 2 types of metamorphosis. The first is a complete metamorphosis. It is the process of change that takes place in 4 distinct stages in the life cycle of an insect. Those 4 stages begin with the egg, the larva or the caterpillar, the pupa, and the adult. The second type of metamorphosis is incomplete metamorphosis. Notice that word incomplete. In is a prefix. It means not. So this is not a complete metamorphosis. This process of change takes place in 3 distinct stages in the life of an insect. Those 3 stages are egg, nymph, and adult. This is a nymph. A nymph is the immature stage of an insect that does not undergo a complete metamorphosis between egg and adult. The nymph resembles the adult insect. This is larva. Larva is the immature stage of an insect's complete metamorphosis between egg and pupa. Insect larvae do not resemble the adult insect. The word larvae means more than one larva. A pupa is the inactive, immature stage of an insect between larva and adult. The word progression is a connected series of events. For example, the 4 separate stages of complete metamorphosis. And the word molt. Molt means to shed old feathers, hair, skin, or shells, making way for new growth. For insect, this means shedding its old exoskeleton, as you will see here in the picture. So today, as we read, I want you to be listening for these facts. So here are our purposes for reading today. I want you to be able to understand that not all insects experience the same stages of development. Be able to identify two distinctly different ways insects develop, and name the stages of each kind of change. So welcome back. Do you remember our narrator from the first part of our read aloud? What kind of insect is this? That's right, it's a praying mantis. Let's see what he will teach us today. We'll start with the life cycle of a praying mantis. In this slide, you're going to see the egg case. You'll see nymphs emerging. You will see older nymphs and also the adult. If you recall, during our last lesson, we discussed the complete metamorphosis of a butterfly. Well, not all insects change so completely. Some insects, young, like the praying mantis, are miniature or small models of their parents after hatching. They do change, so they do experience a metamorphosis, but because it is not a complete change, scientists call it an incomplete metamorphosis. Just like you, the young start off as a similar version of what they will end up being. Just as you started off as a baby person and are slowly growing into an adult person, some young insects slowly grow and change into an adult. A praying mantis goes through 3 life stages: egg, nymph, and adult. In the autumn, the female mantis lays as many as 400 eggs inside an egg case that is attached to a plant. In spring, the eggs hatch. The tiny praying mantis babies emerge from the egg case. These brand new hatchings or nymphs don't quite look like me. What do you think? Do my babies look like me as an adult? A little later, the nymph resembles me more. The only thing it is missing is its wings. Even though you can't see them yet, they are developing tiny wing buds. These nymphs eat the same sorts of food as I do as an adult praying mantis. They eat flies, aphids, moths, and other insects, just smaller ones. Let's take a close look at one of these nymphs. Can you tell at this stage that it is an insect? Can you find its head? There it is. Now let's look for its legs. How many legs are on this nymph's thorax? There are 6. Can you see how many pairs of wings it has? Remember we said that the nymphs don't have wings, but they do have tiny little wing buds that are just beginning to grow. There is a third section as well. Miss LaTondra talked about this in her lesson. Do you remember what it's called? It's called the abdomen. If you answered abdomen, you are correct. What is the outside skeleton of an insect called? That's right, it's an exoskeleton. The baby insect or nymph is born with an exoskeleton, but these hard, non-living coverings do not grow with the growing praying mantis nymph. As the nymph grows, its exoskeleton splits open. Here you see a praying mantis nymph that is molting. The nymph wriggles out to reveal softer skin that can stretch and expand before it hardens. It molts its exoskeleton again and again. It grows a new one as many as 10 times before it reaches adulthood. Here is its exoskeleton. The nymph stage often lasts all summer long. After its final molt, Each surviving praying mantis has a fully developed exoskeleton and full-grown wings like mine. Grasshoppers, crickets, and cockroaches belong to the group of insects that experience an incomplete metamorphosis similar to this one. An insect's life cycle is quite short compared to yours. In some cases, it takes only a few weeks. Scientists believe that this is one reason there are so many insects on the planet. They are forever breeding and need to reproduce rapidly because they have so many enemies. Not all insects, however, have short life cycles. So let's look at an insect with a longer life cycle. The cicada looks a little like a grasshopper and is thought to have the longest life cycle of any insect, ranging from 2 to 17 years. Wow, did you hear that? 17 years? The adult cicada lays her eggs on twigs. When the eggs hatch, the nymphs fall to the ground and burrow into the soil, searching for tree roots. They feed on the tree's sweet root sap. Cicadas undergo incomplete metamorphosis, so there is no pupa stage. The nymph remains hidden beneath the ground, continuing to shed their exoskeletons. There you see the cicada's exoskeleton. Once they are fully grown, they make their way to the surface again, shed their skin one last time, and emerge as winged adults. For some reason, all of the cicadas in an area emerge at once, either every 13 years or every 17 years. That's a very interesting fact, don't you guys agree? I think I might like to learn more about that. Here is a swarm of cicadas. When the cicadas all emerge, they fly everywhere, and their calls are very loud. When hundreds of flying insects swarm through the air, their loud buzzing noises and the snapping of their wings make quite a loud noise. Next time, you will meet some other flying insects that may also travel in swarms. Can anyone guess what insects they might be? I'll give you a clue. Bzzz. All right, let's go back to our KWL chart now. Remember, on our KWL chart, we are going to be adding things that we learned from this lesson. Before we do that, I want to ask Miss Latondra if she will help us to answer some questions about today's lesson. I want you at home to try to answer along with her. I also want you to try to answer in a complete sentence. That means restating the question and then giving your answer. Miss Latondra is going to model this for our first question. Are you ready, Miss Latondra?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Miss Latondra, what word is used to describe the progression of events or change that occurs in an insect's development?
The word used to describe the progression of events in an insect's development is metamorphosis.
Did you answer the same thing? Did you hear how she used the question and repeated it and then gave her answer? All right, now get ready for your next question. I'm expecting you at home to answer along. All right, the next question is, why do insects molt?
Insects molt as a way to make room for new growth.
Did you get that right? That's right. Remember, we talked about that they get rid of their old exoskeleton and then they crawl out of it and then they get bigger each time. So they have to get rid of that old exoskeleton so they can make room to get bigger. All right. Now, you're going to have to really use your scholar's brain for this question. Are you ready? All set?
You bet.
All right. Can you name the 4 stages of a complete metamorphosis?
Okay, let me think about this one. I think the 4 stages of a complete metamorphosis are egg, larva, pupa, and adult.
What about you? Did you get all 4 of those correct? Miss Latondra says it starts with the egg, and then the larva, and then the pupa, and then lastly the adult. All right, great job. Kiss your brain if you got that one correct. The next question is, can you name the 3 stages of an incomplete metamorphosis?
So the 3 stages of an incomplete metamorphosis are egg, nymph, and adult.
Is she right, boys and girls? She is. That's awesome. The 3 stages are egg, nymph, and adult. All right. Now for your last question, is the change that takes place in the growth of human beings like you more like that of a complete metamorphosis or an incomplete metamorphosis?
So the change that takes place in the growth of human beings like us is more like an incomplete metamorphosis because human infants resemble their human parents from birth.
That's right. You weren't hatched from an egg, were you?
No.
No. When you were born, you were a tiny human being. And as you grow, you look more and more like your adult parents. All right. Awesome job. Now, I am so proud of you, and I want us to go back to our KWL chart again to see if we answered our wonder question. Our wonder question was, what happens after an insect hatches from its egg? Now, let's think about that. We've learned the 4 stages of complete metamorphosis. We've learned the 3 stages of an incomplete metamorphosis. So what happens after the egg hatches? It's kind of a tricky question, so I really want you to think about it. We learned that there are 2 types of metamorphosis, complete and incomplete. So our answer is going to be a little bit different. In a complete metamorphosis, after the egg hatches, it is a larva. In an incomplete metamorphosis, after the egg hatches, it is a nymph. I hope you at home got that right. I feel certain that you have learned all about complete and incomplete metamorphosis, and you already knew the answer to this. One more thing that I would like for us to add to our L chart is about the fact that some insects molt or shed their exoskeleton to make room for new growth. I think this is very important in the life cycle of an insect to show how each time they shed their exoskeleton, they grow into an adult. Do you have any other questions at home that you're wondering about insects? We had so much fun with you learning about the life cycle of insects. I hope that you will come back to hear our next lesson about an insect that makes that bzzz sound.
Thank you so much, boys and girls, for joining us today. All rights and credits from this lesson belong to Core Knowledge Language Arts. We would like to thank them for publicly sharing these materials.
Use what you have learned today and go tell someone at home some of the amazing facts that you learned about insects. If you are interested, you can also check out these books on our slide, either online or at your local library. Have a great day.